So let's talk about Andrew Tate. He's not just some guy on the internet, he's a full-blown global phenomenon. And he's selling this incredibly powerful philosophy to millions of young men. But what if it's all built on a shaky foundation of contradictions, and maybe even personal trauma? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into the analysis from our source material to really understand both his massive appeal and the internal flaws that, it's argued, make his worldview a dangerous illusion.
And this phrase, this is the key to everything. The analysis we're looking at argues that Tate's real genius is giving a simple external enemy for the very real frustrations a lot of young men are feeling. You know, that feeling of being a total loser on dating apps, the confusion around what society expects from you, the huge gap between your life and the millionaire lifestyle you see online. Tate takes all of that pain and gives it a name, the Matrix.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? The source material makes this really compelling case that Tate's philosophy, while it sounds amazing on the surface, is actually a trap. A trap that doesn't lead to empowerment, but to anger, isolation, and ultimately self-destruction. So let's dive in and first figure out why so many people are drawn to this in the first place.
All right, first up, the Tate phenomenon. Look, to really get the critique, we first have to understand why he's become this king to so many guys out there. The analysis suggests his message hits so hard because it speaks directly to a genuine and often really painful sense of powerlessness.
I mean, just try to put yourself in their shoes for a second. You're getting 0 Tinder matches. Society's telling you your very nature, your masculinity is toxic. You look in the mirror and you don't see a billionaire, you just see you. And you've got this nagging feeling that women just aren't interested. Well, these frustrations are like the perfect soil for Tate's message to grow. He comes along and offers a simple, powerful solution. Stop being a sheep, become a wolf. For a lot of guys, that sounds like salvation.
Okay, let's get into the science of it. A huge part of Tate's whole worldview is this idea that women are biologically hardwired to want a dominant, aggressive man. He presents this as scientific fact. But the analysis we're digging into argues that he's kind of cherry-picking the research here.
It all boils down to something called the ovulatory shift hypothesis. Research shows that for about 5 to 6 days a month, during the fertile window, some women do show a heightened preference for more masculine, high testosterone traits. But here's the kicker. That's only about 18% of the time. The other 82% of the cycle, the vast majority of the month, the preference tends to lean more towards things like reliability, kindness, stability.
And right there, that's the whole game. Tate takes this tiny little window of a temporary situational preference and blows it up into this universal biological law that supposedly applies to all women all the time. And that little exaggeration, it's the very bedrock of his entire dating strategy.
So you're probably thinking, but wait, his advice seems to work in his videos. Well, the analysis points to the environment. Turns out, women tend to be more social when they're in that fertile window. So, places like bars and clubs, they naturally become these hotspots, packed with a self-selected group of women who are, at that very moment, most likely to be receptive to his whole aggressive vibe. He's basically looking at a fishbowl and thinking it's the entire ocean.
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about his personal success, because this is another huge piece of the puzzle. The thing is, the source we're looking at argues that his success isn't something you can just copy and paste, because it relies on this unique cocktail of privileges that he never really talks about.
The analysis breaks it down into 4 key things he has going for him. First, novelty. His mixed-race background makes him stand out, seem exotic, especially in places like Eastern Europe. Second, pre-selection. He's always filmed with beautiful women around him, which is powerful social proof that he's desirable. Third, the halo effect. His fame, his money, it creates this aura of being a high-status guy before he even opens his mouth. And finally, perceived high T. His physical look just subconsciously screams high testosterone. You add all that up, and he's starting the race way, way ahead of the average guy.
So you hear him say stuff like this all the time, right? And he presents it as straight-up proof that his dominant alpha thing works. But the analysis, it suggests he might be misreading why he's successful.
So here's the bottom line. His success isn't about some magic formula of being dominant. It's a product of his very specific, unique situation and all this privileges. An average guy trying to copy his moves without all that fame and money, well, he's probably not going to look like an alpha. He's just going to look like a jerk.
All right, this next part is where the analysis gets really interesting. See, it doesn't just poke holes from the outside. It actually shows how his own philosophy completely falls apart under its own weight and leads to some pretty damning conclusions.
Okay, check out this vicious cycle. Step 1, Tate says a man has to be this high-value provider working crazy hours, 12, 16 hours a day. Okay, so what happens? The father is never home, which means the son is raised mostly by his mom. And according to Tate's own rules, what does that do? It makes the son spineless. So what's the solution for the spineless son? Well, he's told he has to become a high-value, hardworking, absent provider himself, which just starts the whole crazy cycle all over again. The very system he promotes is the thing that creates the men he criticizes. And that brings us to the most personal and honestly the most powerful part of this whole critique. Andrew Tate himself. His dad left, and he was raised by his single mom. So what happens when we apply his own brutal logic to his own life story?
Well, if you followed Tate's logic all the way to its really harsh conclusion, his own mother, a woman who worked multiple jobs to raise him and his brother alone, she ends up fitting his own definition of a woman who isn't a high-value partner. The analysis points out that by his own rules, she turns out to be a slut. And this suggests that maybe this isn't just about logic, maybe it's about projecting some really deep personal trauma onto the whole world.
So, after tearing down this whole illusion, the analysis doesn't just leave you hanging. It actually offers a concrete, practical alternative for the average guy who's feeling lost and just wants to do better.
You see, one of the biggest criticisms is that Tate gives you motivation, but he doesn't give you a method. Become a top G. What does that even mean? It's a goal, right? It's not a step-by-step plan. It's not something a regular person without his fame and money can actually do. And it creates this trap. If you try and fail, well, it's just your fault for not being top G enough.
But compare that to this, a simple 6-step guide from the analysis. It's all about preparation, the basics, right? Clean clothes, stand up straight, get a little bit fit. Then use a low-pressure opener, something situational, like, hey, what coffee do you recommend? Easy. From there, you connect and you listen. Then you respectfully ask for the number. And that selfie tip, that's pretty clever, right? It solidifies the connection. The point is, this is a clear path. It's built on skill, not status. It's repeatable, and it's all about respect and genuine connection, not trying to dominate someone.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. Tate's whole philosophy is built on this idea that strength is about control. Controlling women, controlling your environment, basically dominating everything. But this alternative we've looked at, it suggests something completely different. That maybe, just maybe, real strength is found in self-control, in discipline, in having the courage to actually connect with another person. And really, it's a choice between building an empire of one or building a bridge to someone else.